Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends, and thanks as always for being here. I have a great episode in store for you today with Amy Gregory. She is out of Mesa, Arizona. She's with eXp Realty, and this woman totally sparked my interest, and I've been secretly stalking her on Instagram for a while because she is well known for her passion for simplifying the real estate business and working roughly 10 hours a week is what she does, and she makes over six figures, and she's got, is it four kids, Amy?
Yeah, I've got four kids.
Yeah. So she basically did what I'm always preaching about with Pursuing Freedom, which is figure out what matters to you in your life, prioritize that, and then design your business to be a vehicle to support your dream life and not rob you of it. And Amy is just doing that so well. And her story is so interesting. So I'm not going to waste any more time talking here. Just go ahead and intro you, Amy. So tell us a little bit about your story and how this came to be. And we'll just kind of dive right in.
I'm like so excited to be here because you are like my spirit animal. I feel like we're totally on the same page on so many things of like designing your business to support your lifestyle that you want. And so I got involved in real estate way back in college. I worked for a local home builder, and because they were a local small company, I got to my hands kind of in everything. But I ended up in their marketing department, and that's where I learned graphic design and branding and all of these things. And I was probably there 6 or 7 years. And then I got married, had a baby, and then I worked from home for them for about a year, doing graphic design work and marketing. And then the market crashed, and they were ready for me to be done, and I was ready to be done. And but I still had I kind of always thought I'd just be a stay-at-home mom. And then I still just had all these ideas running through me. And so I started doing freelance graphic design work for people, built websites, had stuff published in magazines, and then kind of built that to capacity, and then decided to design once and sell it 100 times. And so then I had an online storefront, and my thought process being like, well, if it's online, then my audience is everyone. Like I could serve the whole country or world or whatever. And then as I was doing that, that's when I started working with fashion bloggers. They helped me sell my product. And that's where I really learned social media. And at that time, Fixer Upper was on TV, and everyone was like going crazy about it. And I kept telling my husband, I said, fashion bloggers and real estate agents have the same business model. They sell other people's inventory for a small percentage. And so I kept thinking, like, why isn't anyone applying social media, Instagram in particular, to real estate? And I kind of sat on that idea for like a year or two before I was gutsy enough to pursue it. And I just shut down my online storefront, like cold turkey, overnight, shut it down. Said, I'm going to go back to real estate. And thankfully my husband he's always keeping a roof over our head so that I can then kind of make these investments of time into things I want to pursue. And so then I started pursuing real estate, and with the notion of using Instagram and social media to lead generate, find my clients, and like build a business that would support my lifestyle.
And what year was it that you jumped back into selling real estate?
Okay, it was my first full year in real estate would have been like 2016 into 2017. Because it's 2020. Yeah, my baby was born in 2017. I had my fourth baby my first year in real estate because that's, good timing. That's how we do things.
Yeah. Well, it's like all or nothing for most of us in this roller coaster.
Go big or go home,
Yeah, exactly. So talk to me a little bit about what were your goals when you got started, and then how specifically did you leverage Instagram to attract clientele right away?
So initially, when I shut down my online storefront, I wasn't totally sure how I was going to get back into real estate. I was licensed, and I knew I wanted to use social media, but I wasn't quite sure how to navigate it. Turns out I ended up doing some business consulting for that home builder I used to work for. And it was kind of in that process of talking through with him that I realized, hey, we should be speaking more to women and to mothers. I live in the suburbs, and I thought that's my audience, is I want to speak more to women and mothers. And I knew Instagram was for storytelling. And so I knew I could tell a compelling story of a mom going back to real estate. And literally my first post on Instagram kind of announcing, hey, I'm going back to real estate, I compared it to like putting on your skinny jeans, right? Every mom knows what it feels like to try and like put those skinny jeans on after you've had a baby. And I compared going back to real estate to like putting on your skinny jeans. Feels a little uncomfortable, kind of got to suck it in, kind of got to like, and take that step. And it just resonated really well. And what I really did focus in on though was prior to like going to real estate, I really mapped out the numbers and I thought, gosh, you really, to make six figures in real estate, for whatever reason, six figures was always this thing of like, I wonder if I could build a side hustle that produced six figures. This was always the question that kind of like rolled in my head. And my other endeavors, they were great. They produced great income. But I just thought, gosh, I should be able to leverage social media and real estate and do it quicker, faster, bigger, better. And so I realized if I were to do like 15 deals at 300,000, I could hit six figures. And I just kept thinking, well, that's not that 15 is not that many. It's not that many.
Yeah.
And I knew I could mine my leads out of Instagram.
So talk to us a little bit, because I know when I glazed over you working 10 hours a week, or that every real estate agent listening is like, what? How about what?
I know.
So talk to us a little bit about your time management and how do you structure your days? I'm sure that it's different every day depending on what you have going on, but how do you manage your time in a way that you feel like you're in control of your days, your hours, your business, and all the results that you're getting?
Well, let's be honest. Every real estate agent knows that there's a lot of times we are not in control of our time, right? Sometimes you got to go and you got to go right then. So when I say 10 hours a week, is it like ironclad every single week? It is exactly 10 hours? No. There's some days where I am working 10 hours in that day, right? But like over the course of the year, it averages out to about 10 hours a week because there's some weeks where I don't work, right? I'm not working the week of Christmas. I'm not working the week of Thanksgiving. Like there's just times where I'm like, well, I'm not, real estate's a little bit seasonal, right? So there's seasons where you're really just not working much if you don't want to be. And so when I say 10 hours a week, I probably spend about 10 hours a week on transactions. Now I'm scaling other things in my business. So if you ask me how much fully I'm working right now, it's probably 20 to 25 hours a week. But that first year in, it was 10 hours on transactions. And what I really did was, this is just part of being a mom is you learn how to manage time and households really, really well, right? Like, when your baby is napping, oh, you got 2 hours, you better focus in and you better do it. And that's how I had built my other businesses is I built them during my baby's nap times. And I would work during their naps. I'd work at night. Sometimes I'd work in the morning. As my kids got older, I work in the morning, like I'm up at 5 a.m. every morning. And I work, but I really would work while my toddler was at preschool, or I would work when my baby was napping. And obviously there's times where you like have to schedule meetings with clients. And so I would just figure out babysitters, or I don't know, like it was just part of it's just part of being a mom though. You do that all the time. Like you already have that skill set. Right? Like, oh, I need to get to so-and-so's recital, so you get a babysitter. And I was just always willing to make that trade-off of saying like, well, this is what I want to pursue. What do I have to do in order to make that happen? And then I would do that.
So let me ask you something. And I think that this is also interesting for folks that are listening that maybe don't have children too, because at the end of the day, it's about incredible time management and boundaries. And what I want to know is, how do you control the guilt? I know that might be a strange question, but when you talk about how some weeks you don't have to work so much because you don't have so much going on, how do you control the monkey brain that tells us that we're not doing enough and we need to be doing more all the time? And so there's this epidemic in our industry of like a badge of honor for just being busy, even when the busyness isn't translating to business. Does that make sense? Like it's not easy for a lot of people to lean into the pause. Like you said the seasonality of our business. We have seasons where we're not as busy, yet I know so many people in our industry that struggle during that time emotionally because they're feeling like they need to be doing something all the time to be able to fix this problem, which is the slow season, and it's a season. So how do you manage your own sort of, responsibility, guilt, whatever you want to call it? Is that an issue for you, or is that just something you've mastered?
Well, no, I haven't mastered much of anything, but that because it's just, I think, I'm trying to think of how I want to answer this. There's definitely mom guilt for sure. I think but I've just learned to like be okay with it and carry it and say like, I'm doing the best I know how with what I've got, with what I know now. I think every parent at some point is going to look back and regret some of our decisions, moms especially. And I am careful with the trade-offs. I think a couple of things. Number one, my first year in, when I kind of realized, hey, I did this in 10 hours a week and I took the last 2 months of the year off and had a baby. Like initially, I didn't really want to tell people that because you're like, do people think I'm lazy? Do they think but I knew that really wasn't the case. It was more like, as a mom, I learned how to do things very efficiently and very effectively and to figure out how to get results and how to get results quickly. And so I think real estate is a game of marketing. Like the best marketer wins. The best real estate agent doesn't win. The best marketer wins. And so if you can market, then build a team underneath you to not a team, but because I don't have a team, but hire the people, outsource the things, outsource your weaknesses.
Sure.
And so that was more kind of my approach. But also too, I mean, I've had really candid conversations with my kids, like as they've gotten older, like I missed my son's first junior high basketball game because I was gone at a conference, and you're like, ugh, that kills you. Right. Yeah. And I've missed soccer tournaments because we're out of the city because I had clients coming in from out of town, and you're like, ee. But I think actually it goes back to this. I'm not really seeking like work-life balance and seeking work-life integration. And guess what? My husband went to the soccer tournament and my husband went to the basketball game. And I think more and more I am working more towards a dynamic where my husband's home and equally a part of the family life as I am. And I just think it's probably a little bit of a different approach, but I think that's something between my husband and I where we've just decided that we're going to have each other's backs, and when one's gone, the other one is there. And so,
well, I mean, I like this. There's a specificity to what you want out of this business and what you want out of life that is apparent to me in everything you do. And so, I often admire that because I found that a lot of people in our industry, we get caught up with comparing ourselves with others. And so, for example, I have a very successful friend of mine who's been on the show, and she tries to limit herself to 24 transactions a year or roughly 2 a month. And she's okay with referring out the rest. And so how do you sort of measure your own success when it comes to that? Because I imagine that the more you go along on your journey, the more business you're going to attract naturally. And so do you set limits to like, this is the max I can handle right now because I'm falling out of alignment with my priorities with my family? Like when you mentioned, I only need to do 15 deals at 300,000 to make 6 figures. How has that evolved over the last couple of years? And as you look ahead, do you have limits on what you're willing to take on?
I haven't had to totally cap myself yet. I've probably built in more systems and strategies to I really think you have to build the habits to support your success. And so it's more about building the habits, the systems, the procedures to support it without sacrificing. I always say, I don't want to abandon my motherhood. I don't want to sacrifice my motherhood or my family or my relationship with my spouse. That's not what I'm after. And I think more and more it's communicating that to clients. I think most clients don't want you to do that either. And I think sometimes in this business as agents, going back to what you were saying, being busy for the sake of being busy, always looking like you're being busy. And it's well, when I go get a haircut, I don't actually want the person to take 2 hours so that I feel like they did a good job. I want the person that can do it in 30 minutes because my time is valuable. And so it's kind of communicating that to say, hey, listen, I'm scaling some of these things and I'm leveraging some of these resources to buy back my time. The goal is to buy back my time.
Now, with so much of your branding being online and on Instagram, which we'll share for people to follow you later because I love it. Are you also incorporating traditional lead gen strategies? Are you also doing a specific number of outbound calls to past clients or Spear or doing events or anything else? Or do you feel like if you can be really organized with your message online, that is sufficient to get you where you're trying to go?
That is a great question. I when you say traditional lead generating techniques, I came in as a solo agent and I just kind of operated as a solo agent, and I've always had this entrepreneurial mindset. So when you say traditional lead gen techniques, I'm don't even know what that is. What is a traditional lead? What would that actually be? And no, I don't door knock. I don't do outbound calls. I recognize, I know where my leads are coming from and I know how to have touch points with those people, but I really love, I can build relationships at scale on Instagram.
I love, so I think this is actually
Yeah.
really refreshing for a lot of people to hear, because one of the things we talk about a lot is just knowing what you're good at and
Mm-hmm.
letting that be enough. So like
Yeah.
paying attention to where your business comes from and then doing maybe just more of that. And that might not mean 5 phone calls a day. So when I said traditional, I mean, I meant like, most coaching companies that we've all encountered on our journey tell us the number of calls we need to make, the number of notes we need to make, the number of hours we need to spend doing such things, and then how many appointments face to face, and how many. And that's where the busy, busy, busy comes in, because the next thing you know, you look at your calendar and it's a hot mess. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, for you, you've just simply streamlined it. You know what you're good at, and you are doing that very, very well. And I think that's refreshing for people to hear, because people want the permission to not have to do all the things and not be doing all of them well, you know?
Well, and I think that was the benefit to coming in. Like I came into like a boutique firm. They didn't really have like a training program. I kind of had my own idea of what I wanted to do. And the broker was like, yeah, sounds cool. I think you should do that. And so I was like, okay, great. I'm going to go do that. And I've always, like, Marie Forleo has this phrase she uses, like, everything is figure outable.
Yep.
And it's kind of like everything I've done prior to real estate, like, led me to this point. Like, every skill set I learned, like, through graphic design, through the online storefront, through being a mom, like, all of those things, like, really it's just taking all of those different skill sets and applying them to real estate, right? Like, listen, I know how to negotiate because I can out negotiate my 3-year-old. Like, and as a mom, well, right though, like,
Yeah.
you start to learn, like, with your kids, like, how to negotiate, and you develop this like emotional intelligence that you're like, hey, you're slamming the door, walking through the house, like, you're mad at it, but it's not that, it's something else. And so it's taking that skill set and applying it to real estate. Like, I can identify really quickly, like, what my clients actually want. Are they after convenience or are they after dollars and cents? Like, which is more important to them? And then I can structure the deal how they want it. Right. And I learned that through being a mom. Like, some kids can tolerate one thing and another kid can't. And so it's being able to read what people want to tolerate and what they don't want to tolerate, and then just speaking to that. And then the branding, I learned all that, like, through graphic design and building my own businesses, and so just all these different skill sets, and then now applying them to real estate, and they just all apply really fantastically.
Well, what I love about what I'm hearing here is this simplicity and efficiency seems to
Mm-hmm.
be sort of the cornerstone of your success. And a lot of people overcomplicate. And that's where you find yourself doing too much, and maybe too much of the wrong things and not enough of the right things. How do you, because I'm impressed by your Instagram and your stories and the beautiful, look of everything. How do you specifically go about managing that? Do you time block it once a month to write it all out? Do you time block it once a week? Are you doing it on the fly? Like, how do you successfully get that content out there? Because so many of us are feeling haphazard with our efforts.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, I developed really great writing skills because I used to, like, write a blog for years and years and years. And it was just a blog about my kids and my family, but it was kind of like reflective and like a journal. And I just really learned how to write in that process, and kind of how to pull, like, the story out and how to pull the lesson out of the experience. Right. And so you'll see a lot of those kind of posts on my Instagram. But yeah, I would say, if you're wanting to pursue using Instagram as an agent, you're I would time block writing. I would learn how to write and learn how to tell stories and figure out what your story is. Like, people want to know what your story is. Like, my story is, I'm a stay-at-home mom to 4 that's pursuing real estate, and that it's an interesting story. I mean, people saw me doing it with a baby on my hip, and I told them that I negotiated a deal from my hospital bed, which some people are like, oh, no, never in a million years would I do that. And I was like, well, I mean, none of my other kids are here. I'm just kind of quiet. Like, I can sit here and talk on the phone for a minute. It didn't really bother me. And so I want to be careful that I don't paint some picture of, like, oh, it's just always frolicking through a meadow and there's never any sacrifices being made. I mean, of course there's sacrifices being made, but they're just sacrifices that feel reasonable to me.
Yeah.
And they give the payout that I want on the back end. And so, but yeah, I time block and I batch content. Like, I no, I don't know that. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but yeah, I can have my kids together or take pictures, and I'll produce 50 images in 2 hours, you
Awesome.
know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like just saying, okay, and then I have a bank, a library to pull from, so to speak, right? It's not like, I think sometimes people think on Instagram, oh, it has to be a picture I took today, and I'm not doing anything interesting today. And it's like, well, no, that's not really like, no, it's a business. So you treat it like a business. If you want it to pay like a business, treat it like a business, right? If you
Yeah.
want it to pay like a hobby, treat it like a hobby.
Well, and you touched upon something really important there, which is that it is your story and that people
Mhm.
want to work with you. And that's where people need to be careful not to find themselves comparing themselves with others. Like that's the beautiful thing about this industry and what I've learned from this podcast is the diversity of the individuals that have come on this show that are enjoying the journey and experiencing great success. And success is measured by what matters to you in your life, not just business, not just numbers, but the whole picture, right? Like creating the ideal business to support the ideal life. And so I think that that's where, people need to not be afraid to share themselves and their stories. And that's what's drawing people in. And that's how I found you. I mean, it's
Yeah.
authenticity.
Well, and I think too that like social media is a little bit tricky. And there were, I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, I would share a really up close version of my motherhood and my lifestyle and my life, and I would bring people down into the weeds with me. And now, as my business has grown and my kids have gotten older, I'm not really willing to do that anymore. So a lot of times I share a more like I like to share a picture, like a sentiment of motherhood or a sentiment of childhood, or my lifestyle at home, but not like an up close version. I kind of like a pulled back perspective now, right?
Yep.
As my kids have gotten older. And also, like, as it's become more of a business than just kind of a side hustle. It's not really a side hustle. It's a business. And so you have to be respectful of it and kind of treat it as such. And that's a wonderful thing about Instagram and social media is that your story is always evolving, because now my story is not, I'm a stay-at-home mom before working 10 hours a week. That's not really my story anymore, right? That's what it was year one in real estate, and it was a cool story. But now it's like, oh, now I'm a mom, yes, but now I'm like, oh, no, 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 I have a business, and now I'm going to scale it. Now I'm going to grow it. I'm going to scale it, and I'm going to build the systems and the procedures to support it, and then hopefully get this integration that we're talking about, this work-life integration.
Well, you touched upon a couple things that I would like to dig into a little bit more. So you mentioned that you are a solo agent, you don't have a
Mhm.
team, and you don't have any desire to have a team. We talked about that before recording, but now you are starting to scale the business. So how do you identify what to scale and how as a solo agent for those folks listening that don't ever want to have a team?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different ways you can scale a real estate business. And I definitely thought through the team model because people wanted to be on my team. And I thought, well, is that what I want to do? And I just didn't want to I think it's a lot of bandwidth to run a team and a lot of overhead. And I didn't think that was actually my skill set. I just didn't think I was uniquely qualified to do that. And so decided against that. But also, I knew people wanted to know how I was doing things, right? And so you say, okay, can I build out that revenue stream? And does it make sense? And do I have the time and the bandwidth to do that? And can I scale it? And how does it look? And you kind of have to go down and vet some of these ideas, right? And so you have the revenue stream of transactions, and it's kind of my bread and butter. Okay, I know how to do that, so I can rinse and repeat that, and I can grow it and refine it without too much brain damage, right? I don't have to think so hard about it. That first year in real estate there, I had a lot of sleepless nights where I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And it took a lot. There was a lot of brain damage there. But then, so then you go on, okay, what are other revenue streams and how can I scale this? And also offer my services to agents that also want to be more effective and efficient in their lead generation, And so a couple of things. One, I switched my license over to EXP because it's kind of a way of building a team without building a team. I can work with agents and sponsor agents and help teach and train agents without being ultimately responsible for their business. I don't ultimately want to be responsible for anyone else's business. I don't have the bandwidth, time, or energy to put to that right now. Maybe another day, maybe in another season I will, but right now that's where I'm at. And so as I started bringing on agents with me at EXP, they naturally wanted to know how I was doing social media and how to lead generate and all of those things. And I naturally wanted to teach and train them because our interests were so well aligned with one another that it just made all kinds of sense for me to like pull back the curtain and say, this is exactly how I'm doing it. And so again, I go back to effective and efficient. It's got to be effective and efficient. I don't want to train one-on-one again and again and again. It just isn't a good use of my time. And so I started like coming up with a course. And oddly enough, I got a degree in elementary ed. So I know how to teach. Like I literally learned, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but there is a method to the madness when you're teaching.
Yeah.
Which also I honed in on being a mom. As being a mom, you really honed that skill set of how to teach a concept. And so I started putting together a course and recording it. And then I had other people that they weren't ready to like move their license over with me at EXP. And that's understandable. It's not necessarily the best fit for everyone. And so I thought, well, I could just put it online and I could just charge them, a small fee and then they could have access to the information. And then I thought, well, that's like a revenue stream I can automate and I can scale. Right. And so, and it just worked. It worked really well. It interacted really well with my transactions. I always say I like to have like high producing activities where I can like multitask, right? Activities that multitask are activities I really, really like. So Instagram is a great activity. It helps sell my course. It helps me do transactions and it helps me recruit agents. That's why it's a multitasking activity. It's high performing for me.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about your course in case anybody's curious about following and learning from you on how to build your brand through Instagram.
Yeah, my course, it's called The Real Deal with Amy Gregory. And I just go into like that, like the actionable and tactics that I use on Instagram. If you don't understand social media and Instagram, it will eat you alive. It will be the biggest time suck distraction you could possibly imagine. And so I always say, either you can own Instagram or Instagram can own you, and you get to choose. And so I outline my entire framework, the who, the what, and the why, like why it works, the psychology behind why it works. Because once you understand the how and the who and the why it works, you can manipulate it any way you choose. And so within that course, they get all the modules and then they get access to members only Facebook group. And I'm in that group every single week, teaching and training and going over things and helping other people to build the habits that will support their success. And I get that it sounds like funny to like train on how to use Instagram. Like that sounds funny, but I think it's comparable to like, no one would think it was weird if you said, I'm going to go out and learn how to golf and I'm going to go buy the right clothes for golf and I'm going to go take golf lessons because deals happen on the golf course. Like whether you like golf or not, if those are where the biggest deals are happening in your career, like we know that for years and years, people have done that. And it's the same thing. If the deals are happening on Instagram, well, you should probably figure out how to use it.
Yeah, I love it. And, I think it comes back to, again, for folks that are listening, it's like, if you're awesome at making outbound sales calls and you can be efficient and keep it simple and it works for you, then by all means do that. But if you're looking for a way to have efficiency and simplicity in the sales process and you don't love that kind of selling process, then this might be the course for you in order to be able to hone in on your message and get it out there in a way that feels good and works for you. But, we can't try to do it all, but at the same time, it's like, if this is the platform you want to be on, then Amy is the person you need to follow. So I know you need to get on with your day. So tell the listeners, please, where can they follow you? How can they find you? How do they get a hold of you? All that good stuff.
Yes. Okay. So I'm on Instagram at Amy Gregory. And if you're a real estate agent, you should make sure your Instagram handle is your name, because we're like 5 minutes away from it being, hey, Alexa, call the best rated real estate agent in my area. And you wanted to say, hey, Alexa, call Amy Gregory. So you get that name recognition. That's tip number 1 for you. So yeah, really, that's the best place to find me is on Instagram at Amy Gregory. Shoot me a DM. I always compare Instagram to like a networking party, right? Your feed, you get dressed, you look really nice. And if you know who you're looking for at that networking party, you can usually talk to them pretty quickly. That's DMing someone. So go ahead and DM me, come say hi. But then the business never takes place at the networking party, right? It happens at lunch or a phone call or an email after the networking party. And so you always then have to take people off of the app. The goal is to get people off of the app. Like Aaron and I, we met on Instagram. We were both at the networking party. We DM'd, we had a conversation at the networking party, and then we took our relationship to real life and started emailing. And so that is always the pattern.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much for sharing your story and your expertise. And I'm fascinated by the course that you created. So I'm sure that everybody else probably is too. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, it is. I love this whole process of meeting all these amazing people everywhere doing really cool things. And you are one of them. So thanks again. And for those of you listening, my Pursuing Freedom friends and tribe, I appreciate you more than anything. And if you are enjoying the content you're finding here, please be sure to go to wherever you're consuming the content and leave a review, 5 stars, por favor, because, it helps us continue to attract these great guests like Amy and help this content get found to encourage you on your journey to freedom. So have an awesome day. I love and appreciate you.